Okay, well, we're 2 minutes in, and just to be considerate of everybody's time, I think we'll get started. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today for our discussion on maximizing the value between Adobe AEM and Viva Vault Promo Mats. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everybody that we will be recording today's session and sending it to anybody who has registered, along with today's deck and a paper which reinforces what we are discussing today in much more detail. This is the first webinar in a 4-part series on digital asset innovation in the pharmaceutical and life sciences space. So keep a lookout for our upcoming sessions. The next one in particular is a great follow-up to this session because it will discuss a client's journey towards an integrated and automated digital asset ecosystem over at Novo Nordisk. We'll send out an email probably mid next week confirming the dates. Some of these are still tentative, but this is probably what the calendar is going to look like. To formally introduce myself, my name is Dimitri and I am the sales director here at Expedient Digital and will also be moderating today's event. So any questions you have, submit them and I'll be reading, and any follow-up will be coming from me. Be sure to submit questions via the Q&A and we'll be doing our best to get to them as they come up, but we also left some time at the end in case we're running a bit long. With me, I have some amazing colleagues who are going to introduce themselves. So Kristen, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Dimitri. Hi, my name is Kristen Iarati. I am Director of Optimization and Integration at Link9, which is Omnicom Health Group's shared services for production. I'm super happy to be engaged with my partners here at Expedient, with a shared vision for alignment of modernizing how we produce content and omni-channel delivery for our clients.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Liggett. I'm a Senior Director of Product Marketing or Product Management here at Expedient. I have over 20 years of enterprise software experience. Prior to joining Expedient, I was at Viva as a Senior Product Manager on the Commercial Vault team. Learned a lot about pharmaceuticals and life science there, and also have really honed my modular content experience in that time and going forward. Next would be Rohit.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm Rohit Sankolkar. I'm the Director of Product Development here at Expedient. Looking forward to walking you guys through the demo of the integration and modular content, and hopefully you'll find it exciting and useful. Thank you.
Thanks,
Rohit. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, no problem. Expedient had put through an explainer video, which really has extreme concise messaging as far as how their platform can operate for all of you. But what's great about our partnership with them is that, this really depicts like the day in life of agency life, as well as, at a production hub like myself. So Dimitri, if you could play this, I think it's a great kickoff for the day.
You are using Adobe AEM and Viva Promo Mats and are finding tremendous inefficiencies and manual interventions required, resulting in longer time to market and increasing costs for all channel content. Your agencies of record don't know where the assets are, so they just create new digital assets. Up to 80% are used once and never used again. You're manually comparing, mapping, and entering metadata. So frustrating. You have to manually snag, copy, paste content repeatedly for MLR package creation. Creating MLR packages is very tedious, time-consuming, and expensive. And you still have to custom code your channel content, making the content inflexible and hard to change. Are there solutions to these problems? Can you streamline the digital asset supply chain? The first option is a basic connector that enables the flow of content between AEM and Viva, like sending an MLR package directly to Viva from AEM, or moving approved assets and metadata from Viva to AEM automatically, a big step forward from today's siloed and manual systems. Where a platform not only provides the basic connector, it has automation and workflow management built in, automating key manual steps while dramatically streamlining the digital asset supply chain. This is a huge step forward from siloed systems. The difference between these two solutions is significant, and the benefits are much higher with a platform. The connector solves a few basic use cases, but the platform automates critical and manual processes, enabling more benefits. What does this connector do? Well, it can move assets and their metadata between DAMs, and allows you to send an MLR package directly to PromoMats. In addition, it can automatically send approved content from Viva to Adobe DAM and allows either Adobe or Viva as the single source of truth. These features and others are a significant step in the right direction. But the integration and automation platform has the connector functionality. Plus, it supports modular content, AEM authoring for all channels, automated creation of MLR and distribution packages, visibility of expired assets, ability to see Viva annotations in AEM, and much more. On value, the basic connector should provide improvements of 10 to 15%, while the integration and automation platform can drive 50% plus in savings and improved speed to market. Think about that ROI. 50% of your current investment can be saved or reallocated to new content and product launches. Expedient Digital offers a basic connector that we call XP Connect Basic and an integration and automation platform that we call XP Connect Platform. In addition, our XP Omnichannel framework provides a set of templates and modular content to enable AEM to be your single authoring solution. If you are considering options, Expedient Digital can help assess your needs through a discovery and business case to establish a clear value proposition. This can be done in 2 weeks. The connector can be deployed in 2 weeks, and the platform in 6 weeks. Both work with all Adobe AEM solutions and integrate to Viva through their API. Expedient Digital can help you establish an integrated digital asset ecosystem, saving millions of dollars while reducing time to market. All products are based on an annual subscription fee with upgrades and ongoing support tied to that subscription. Many customers have custom needs that may be integrations or workflows and notifications. We can work with you to ensure the solution meets your goals. Please reach out today if you'd like to schedule a free consultation. Call to learn more about your options and the value proposition. We would love to help you on your journey towards a fully integrated and automated digital asset ecosystem that will change the game for your brands.
Thank you, Dimitri, for playing that. If cameras were on, you would think that they made that video with me at the center of it. But you know, we will. I found myself in the same situation as all of you, looking, you know, at Expedient and being at one of these same webinars to basically see what are clients, you know, saying today and what is going on today, you know, in the industry, and coming from the perspective of being so closely tied knit to many AORs, but also having a direct to client model as a production hub. These are basically the a handful probably of some of the questions that come our ways through RFPs and various you know, industry challenges. So, you know, what are the big rocks that are in front of us today, and greatly, you know, achieved in that last video? But, you know, how can I automate what possibly is being done manual today? And how can I really increase my COPE initiative? You know, create once, publish everywhere. And how can I improve the velocity of giving my agencies access to the content that we've created? You know, the creatives at agencies work very diligently, obviously, to work in between these two environments of AEM and Viva, producing, you know, beautiful content to be, you know, leveraged globally and elsewhere. And I think, you know, with this connection here, we're going to be showing to you today, I think that you'll be able to access that and your agencies will be empowered to do more. You know, but obviously there's the cost, it comes at us all the time. And there's the cost of, you know, doing less, you know, doing everything for less, but more. And, you know, how can I get involved with modular content? And modular content being a huge buzzword for 2021, but actionable item for 2022. And, you know, if you are here today and you've stood up AEM and you've stood up Viva, you're certainly in the right place, you know, to start integration and automation of these two platforms. So I thought, Dimitri, we'll go to the next slide to give you a little bit of a view of the current state. You know, everything here below, when it says silo, you know, you're probably likely working with an agency, you're likely working with a dev provider, and then your obvious need here for MLR approval is in Viva. And with Viva enhancements with DAM and modular content, it really opens up some great avenues for you as well. And then it's the publish. Are you using Viva for your CRM or are you not? But either way, what you state here, and I love the use of red here, Dimitri, there's a lot of in and out, and there's a lot of handoffs that happen. And, you know, coming from an agency side, I see that, you know, the creative design can happen. And then when it gets handed over to dev, it's a lot of in and out. And what we can do here, you know, is really talk about, you know, in the content build of digital asset supply chain, you know, moving away from the singular code and bridging the gap between some form of templatized AEM framework where you could then pull back, you know, and have your creatives be working in XD potentially. But in the current state, you know, there's a lot of work still being done in Photoshop. There's a lot of work still being done in design, and that pull through to code, you know, takes time. So what's been really great here is that the XD and AEM, you know, as two different platforms are working in concert in that sense. But how can we pull that through to Viva and that circular motion of MLR? So here we have the integration and automation, you know, solution to consider. So based on the current state, we have the opportunity to take 5 layers, you know, for a successful integration. But, you know, it's really about automating what's manual and integrating to drive access to assets. And if we can integrate and drive access to assets, whether that be a singular asset, whether that be a claim, or whether that be someone who's progressed far enough to have a module, that's really what the offering is here. You know, I think, you know, using the best authoring tool, if you're in AEM, you've made an excellent solution in that sense. There are multitude on the market, but if you're here and AEM is now very cost incentivized in the cloud as well, that this connection to Viva can really support your model. So I'd like to pass this off over to Kevin, and he'd like to walk you through a little bit of the architecture of the 5 layers of success of integration and automation.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kristen. I think you actually did a great job covering that off to start. But like when we talk about this area, we have like a number of layers. We've got integration, DAM, automation layer, authoring layer, modular content layer. These are all around actually how do we get content out and throughput through the actual authoring cycle? How do we get that content produced and deployed quickly and effectively? One of the things that's really important for us to keep into consideration here is if you were to just jump out and say, well, we're going to do modular content right now, and you want to use Viva's modular content, which is really quite elegant because they're setting up pre-approved modules that are available, and then you can go and use them inside of the authoring experience. There's integration, of course, to do that. Otherwise, you'd have to take their approval document and then copy and paste the content into whatever authoring you're going to do. But that's going to be a little bit inefficient. And you're going to probably run into issues around versioning or updates to content if there's some copy that changes or whatever. You would necessarily have that. So what's really, really critical is actually having that integration and automation layer so that when those modules are updated or when your framework is extended for how you're going to do an IVA, for example, that you have those ability to just start putting that content, that authored content, whether it's pre-approved Viva modules or existing modules inside of your AEM environment, that you've got that capability of populating that content. Having that DAM layer is really important as well, because we need to know, can I actually use this content? What market is this set up for? And if you don't have that information altogether, you're not really going to have an effective use of your content. And at the end of the day, if you're doing your authoring work inside of AEM, you need to know that information inside of AEM, which is why we're going to have these integration, these bidirectional interfaces set up between the different platforms. When we talk about this next slide here, we're talking a little bit about, so what are your integration and automation options? I mean, you could do nothing. You could do that. Your budget's going to be very high or get higher because we've probably generated a lot more content in the last 2 years than we have in the last 2 or 3 years prior to that. So that's accelerating. It's probably not the best option. You could create a little custom connector or a basic connector, sort of what we showed in the explainer video. That would give you some connectivity and exposure to surface content, but there's caveats and challenges you're going to have with those areas. What I think the really valuable portions kind of come into is actually having the platform, the full integration and automation platform, putting that into place. And we'll be showing that a little bit in the demo down the road inside of this presentation today. And then on top of that is actually, how do you go about taking that XP Connect platform and adding a content authoring factory on top of it? There's a lot of opportunity in that type of space where people can go out and we can build systems and platforms that will generate content. And this could be not just technology, but this can be services. This can be, it can even potentially be outsourced as well. There's a lot of opportunity to basically get all that content together, provide a very, very high value system and platform to basically build your content inside of, where you can take advantage of all of those other items that are out there. We'll talk a little bit more about COPE and modular content in a couple of slides, but just to talk about that integration layer a little bit more detail. If we have a single direction where it's going from AM to Vault or from Vault to AM, I mean, there's certain value in that. It's not really that good without metadata. You need to understand what's the metadata of this content, where am I allowed to use it, what are my rights information, basically any other specific areas that you kind of need to go out and drive this with. So on the integration layer, you really must have a bidirectional interface that provides metadata information as well. And there will be some metadata mapping that takes place in these things, and platforms can definitely cover those areas for you. From a DAM perspective, I mean, you don't really want to, you can always have Adobe as your single source of truth or Viva as your single source of truth, or you can do sync between the two environments. But what the important item here is that you need to have this needs to be integrated. It needs to be an integrated environment so that when assets are changed or updated, that your authoring system becomes aware of those changes. When you have those updates inside of your system, then you can basically be using the correct content inside of your environment. And this extends actually beyond just digital assets, but this is also going to extend into things like modules, approved modules, and how that copy and text can be used, or that copy and imagery can be used together. Now, when we talk about that automation layer, there's a number of items that sort of take place here. The platform is really designed to automate manually intensive tasks. I mean, you've all probably read this slide by now. But one item in there, and this is probably there's a huge amount of value in our platform for this, is the automatic creation and sync of distribution packages for IDAs. That particular area, when you have to generate the binders inside of Viva Vault, and then you have to put the individual slides in there, it can take hours. It can take a significant amount of time. And if there's any sort of error, then that would just become a problem for you. What our integration automation platform will let you do is you can build that inside of AAM, and then you submit it to Vault. And once it gets sent over to Vault PromoMats, a minute or two later, it's available. It's done. It's been assembled. It's been created. All the metadata is in the right place, and it's just ready to go. So you don't have to go back and manually update or download content and then upload it into Vault, because all those interfaces are done. And it's really important that this is done with the full distribution package. So you can actually fully deploy that directly to CRM, Viva CRM, right after it's been approved inside of Viva. So these are all really, really key areas, basically ensuring that there's automation between those systems. Now, when we talk a little bit more about sort of your current state and your future state, when you're using Adobe AM, I mean, which is arguably the best CMS in the market today, you can design your content and your content strategy around having a very simple way of managing this content inside of AAM, that you can push out your, you don't have to generate custom coding, because you can actually go out and author it into a template templated type environment. You can create your content this way. Your rep triggered emails can all be managed inside of the system. So that here's the standard way that you're going to do this. Once you pass that back over to Viva, it's going to automatically be there. And this is actually sort of when we talk about this authoring, we're not necessarily talking about just the assets. We're talking about the actual structure. What does the IVA look like? Where are the navigation points on the IVA? Do we have a consistent look and feel across IVAs for multiple products so that you can actually, the way that the rep will manage the IVA is the same. So that means like I'm going to expand my text in certain spots. That's always going to be in a consistent area. You might want your templates to be driven, and you can design your own templates. We've actually done this where we've taken custom coded IVAs and converted them into XP Omnichannel framework so that users can then go out and that becomes your template is about how you like to go about working with your IVAs going forward. That makes the navigation very consistent about how things are going to go out and the user will interact with that content. As we look a little bit more and we start talking about our modular content layer, there's quite a lot of text on this one, but it really comes down to a couple of key areas, like what actually is a module? What is modular content? And then what is the COPE framework or the XP Omnichannel framework that you're going to go out and use? And the real differentiator between those two is modules are, it's basically, it's copy and imagery that conveys a specific message. That's what it comes down to. It may or may not have other items associated with it. They can be bigger, they can be smaller, but it's really kind of like a set of messaging and imagery that goes with it. Or data, it could be a chart, whatever it happens to be. And then when you talk about your channel information, how do you actually go about ensuring that you've got that right channel information? So when I have a content that's going to sit in a rep triggered email, I might have a section for ISI. I might have a section for a patient story, use a journey for the user. I might have imagery about how things are going to go out and interact with it. And these basically the modular content is the content that's going to sit inside of the framework that you create in your COPE environment. If I have those two particular areas out there, how are they actually going to go about interacting with one another? And really what happens is it's about having both of them are reusable. So the modular content can be reused across multiple channels, and the framework can actually be set up over multiple channels as well. And those individual channels will drive out those specific items that you need to go out and apply to. Where it becomes useful for everybody is when you actually are able to work with them together. So I get both my modular content, which is going to be my pre-approved messaging, and my channel templates, which are going to provide my channeling and my messaging the way that it's going to interact in an individual channel out to the author so that they can actually assemble that content in the right way. Now, when we talk a little bit more about our technology, the top areas that we have in here is sort of describing how we interact between Adobe Experience Manager and Viva Vault PromoMats, and in turn, Viva CRM. What we're going to be talking about today in the demo, which is going to be coming up shortly. Rohit, do you actually want to talk about which areas of this we're going to go out and show to the users today?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at synced assets across both AEM and Viva. We're going to then take one of those synced assets and we're going to use it to create a piece of modular content, right? And then that modular content will send over to Vault from AEM. And then we'll also use that modular content across multiple channels. So we'll take that modular content, we'll use it on a web page, we'll use it on an email, and then we'll also use it on an IVA slide. And then what we'll do is we'll look at how XP Connect sends all of those over to Viva for MLR review and approval as well. And then towards the end, we'll look at annotations, because those are critical, right? Annotations, your MLR reviewers, once they start looking at the content, they're going to make annotations on the PDF. You want those to be available for your AEM authors to look at so they can make those modifications and resubmit the document. So we'll look at those, and then we'll also look at content expiration or asset expiration, so that when an asset expires in one system, it's synced over to the other one as well. So you're not using expired assets when you're not supposed to.
Great. All right. So with that, we'll pop over to the demo.
All right. Excellent. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so you guys should see my Viva Vault screen at this point.
Yep.
All right, excellent. So we've got this asset. Like I said, we're going to look at synced asset, using it in a piece of modular content, right? So I've got this asset that my librarian just approved for use in Vault. As soon as that asset was approved, it was automatically synced over to my AEM environment. So there's the asset sync that we were talking about. You've got assets that are available across both environments, along with all their metadata, right? So now that my author has access to this asset, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using it in a content fragment, which is my modular content. So my modular content is basically going to be a claim, a piece of claim text, and then I'm going to add my chart in there because my chart actually demonstrates that claim. So we're going to go in here. We're going to go to the folder where our asset was synced, and we're going to select it. And there we go. Now that's my modular content that I just created. You can do this in AEM as content fragments, or if you have HTML formatting that you want for your modular content, you can also do them as experience fragments. We've also got, we're currently working we're working with Viva on their modular content model. So when you've got approved modular content or approved content modules that you create in Viva, those will be accessible in AEM via the integration, and you'll be able to create experience fragments out of those content modules. So you've got that integration as well. So I'm going to save this off. Once this modular content is saved, if your MLR reviewers want to look at that modular content, you have the capability to send that across as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this modular content, and you'll notice that you've got this XP Connect menu option. So I'm going to select this XP Connect menu option, and you've got a send to Viva Vault menu item in there. Now, in this case, because it's my demo environment, I've got multiple vaults that I'm interacting with, but typically in a production environment, you'll simply have your production vault in there, and all you have to do is click the Start Workflow button. So that sends the modular content over for review and approval if that's what your MLR reviewers want. Once your modular content is ready, you can start using it across multiple channels, right? So if we go to sites, let's look at a web page first. So I've got an example of a web page here. It's a pretty typical web page. It's got some navigation up top. It's got background imagery. It's got a call to action. It's got ISI down at the bottom. So if we go to edit and I go to my content fragments, and I've got a little area down here that I want to insert my modular content into. So I'm going to drag and drop, and let's preview it. And you'll see that my modular content is now part of the page. Again, since this is a content fragment in AEM, you can choose to apply styling based on the channel that it's placed into. So your content can actually match, the styling for the content can match whatever channel it's being placed into as far as the colors, the fonts, things like that. So we've got this web page ready. I'm happy with the way it looks. Again, you've got the same menu option up top here in AEM. That's the key, right? Is your authors are always going to have access to this menu option to send any content, whether that be an asset or a web page or an email, across to Viva for MLR review. So I'm going to select my workflow again, say start, and that's it. That's all it takes. Now my web page is over on its way over to Viva. And the key here that Kevin also mentioned in his description is that we're not only syncing the document itself, but we're also syncing the metadata and the distribution package. So your MLR reviewers not only have access to the document itself, but they can also look at any metadata that was submitted along with it, and they have access to the distribution package as well. So they can actually look at the HTML and the assets that are contained within that web page. Or in case of your rep-triggered emails or your IBAs, those distribution packages or assets, zip files, actually flow through to CRM. And then can be used on the IREP app for IVAs. So we've got the web page that we modified and sent over. Now let's look at an email. So again, for the email, pretty standard email format. I've got a message to the recipient. I've got some header information. I've got some information that I want to send them. And then again, down at the bottom, we have ISI. So in the email, I have this area that I want to insert my content fragment into to give them the information. So I'm going to take my modular content that I created, pop it in, preview it. Again, we'll see it looks a little different. The font size, the font color is based on the channel that you're placing it into. So again, once the email is ready, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, click the send button, pick the workflow, and say start. Now my email is on its way over to Viva. So now that we're done with both the email and the web page, let's look at an IVA. And again, with the IVA, this is where the omnichannel framework comes into play, right? So this IVA that we have is based on the XP omnichannel framework. So what you get with the omnichannel framework is you get access to a set of templates and components, right? So you'll have your presentation component, you'll have your shared slide template, you'll have your basic slide template. All of that is available to you right away, so you're able to get your IVAs up and running really fast. And these templates, you can inherit from them, and then you can apply styling by brand. So if you want your brands to have a different look and feel, you can inherit from the template and then create your own templates, basically, with client libraries for the styling that you want to be applied for that particular brand. So if we look at this slide, we'll see that what the template does is it gives you the formatting, right? So this slide, we'll notice, is already in the iPad format, right? And it's got the menu defined up top. It's got the navigation defined down at the bottom. It's got this ISI component that's already available within the slide. So that's what the framework gives you, right? Is it gives you all of the capabilities that you need within the slide. So the only thing you're having to add is styling and content, right? So that's the main thing. So let's go to edit and go to our content fragment again. And I'm going to drag and drop, and we'll see that the content fragment is now available within this slide, right? And that's what we've done with all of these widgets, right? So these are all components. These are text components. This is an image component. All of those are available as part of the omnichannel framework. So all you're doing is placing them on the slide at whatever location you want them to be, and then adding your content in there. All right, so now that we've got the slide ready, I'm going to do the same thing with it. Pick the workflow and then send it across. So we've done the modular content. We created the modular content, sent that across to Viva. Then we've used that modular content on a web page, on an email, and on an IVA slide. And you don't have to send a single slide across. You can also send the entire IVA. So if I wanted to send my entire IVA across instead of the slide, the only thing I do is I click at the IVA level, the actual presentation level, and then I pick the same option again. And what that does is it'll send over each of these slides, right, including any shared slide that you have in there. And then it'll send over the presentation as a binder. And then it'll associate all of these slides with that binder in this order. So whatever order you see these slides in AEM, that's the order you're going to get the slides in on the Viva side. And then each of these slides, of course, have their metadata sent along with the slide itself, and also have the distribution package sent. And that distribution package is what's sent over to CRM and then ultimately to the IREP app, and it displays as HTML within the IREP app for that slide. We've also got the metadata needed by CRM. So any slide level actions like the disable swipe and things like that, you can also send those across. So those are flowing all the way through CRM too. So it's pretty complete. There's really a lot of manual effort that's involved in creating these slides and the presentation if you're doing it outside of an automated environment, and all of that is really avoided by using this the XP Connect and XP Omnichannel. What you're getting is from one system to the other system, it's completely automated as far as the flow goes.
And Rohit, we have a question. Does the platform support AEM in the cloud too?
Yes. So what we recently did is we actually made sure that our packages were all AEM in the cloud compatible. We're now out of beta for that. We're actually putting it in production at a client next week. So it's available both on-prem, hosted, or in the cloud.
Awesome, thanks.
All right. All right, so now that we've done all this, we've sent all this over, let's go back to Vault, right? And I'm gonna go back to my library and let's look at what we sent over. So there's the modular content that we sent over. There's the web page it came over. There's the email, and then there's my IVA slide. So let's look at the web page first, right? So the web page that we sent over came over as a PDF for the actual document itself, right? And again, for the PDF, you can choose what rendition you want to send over, right? So if you have your MLR reviewers want to see your website in desktop view, you can include that. If they want to see it in tablet view, mobile view, whatever you want to attach, you can create PDFs of those renditions, those versions, right? Or multiples if you want. So they say, I want to see the website in desktop and mobile view. You can definitely do that. You can, and that's an example here. So because it's in tablet view, it's got the hamburger menu and all of that. So we've got the PDF itself. Like I said, all the metadata that we've synced between the two systems, that is included here as well. And then you've got your distribution package too. So if we go to renditions, you'll see that there's a distribution package. So this is the actual HTML for the web page and any assets that are included. Those are all bundled into a zip file for the distribution package. What we also do is if there's any synced assets that are included with this, with the submission, then we also will set those up as linked assets. So not only do you get the PDF submission, but if there's any linked assets that are used in there, you'll also see them as linked assets that are included in the submission. So that's the web page. Let's look at the email next. So again, we've got the email. It's this is actually, we actually sent over the email as an HTML document, right? Because it's got to flow over to CRM as well. So this is the viewable rendition that Viva creates for the email. We've got the actual HTML that we submitted, and then we've also got the assets.zip file included. So that assets.zip file has all the assets that are included in this email, and then those flow through to CRM once it's approved. So that's the email. And then we've got the IVA slide that we sent over. So there's the IVA slide. Again, it comes over as a PDF. You've got, like I said, any metadata. You've also got the CLM properties that you want to flow through to CRM, disable actions, CLM content, etc. And then you've also got the distribution package that flows over to CRM and the IRAP app. So those are the three items, the three channels that we sent over. So let's look at annotations next, right? So now that we've got the content submitted over for MLR review, your MLR reviewers, as they're walking through this content, they may want to annotate it. So what we're going to do is, add an annotation, right? So I'm going to say this color is wrong and needs to change. And I'm going to save that. So in a normal manual environment, right, what you'd need to do is your document champion would need to download this document once it's annotated, and then they'd need to email it to your AEM authors, and then your AEM authors would need to look at that attachment, and they'd need to go make whatever changes are needed and then resubmit your document, right? So it's a very disconnected process. So in this case, what we're doing is we're making those annotations available to your AEM authors directly without them having to go outside of AEM. So your authors are really in control. They can not only submit the document, but then they can also see what annotations were added by MLR reviewers without having to leave AEM. So if we go back to AEM here, right? And we did that on the web page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the web page, and I'm going to go to this Viva annotations option. That's also part of the XP Connect menu. So when I go to this Viva annotations option, it shows me the versions of the document that are in Viva. And when I click on it, it actually downloads that annotated version of the PDF right to my desktop, right? So I can open it and scroll through it to see what annotations have been applied. And there we go. There's my annotation that I just added. So they've got access to whatever changes MLR reviewers have requested right in AEM, and they can go make those changes and resubmit the document. So that's a big benefit where they're not having to toggle back and forth between systems, or they're not having to receive documentation via email in order to figure out what changes need to be made for resubmission. All right, so that's annotations.
Rohit, that's a big one coming from an agency perspective as well. I think even knowing that those comments can be in place within the page is critical. A lot of PDFs end up stacking comments at the end, but having them live and right in there is tremendous.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's the exact view that the Viva MLR reviewers see, right? So basically, whatever the MLR reviewer is putting in is what the AIM author sees for comments. Thank you, Kristen. All right. So then the last thing I wanted to show you is expiration, right? So if we go back to the library, and this original chart that I had synced over, right? So if it expires, so it's no longer available for use, you want to make sure that your authors are aware of that, so they don't end up using it when they shouldn't be. So if the state gets set to expired, there's a sync process that kicks off behind the scenes. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to do that manually. But what we do is there's basically a web service that's listening for any state changes from active to expired, and it picks up the expiration state and it syncs it over to AEM. So when that happens, that asset is removed from the AEM author. It's not removed from the publish instance, so you won't lose the asset and there won't be a hole on your production website or anything like that. But that asset is removed from the author instance so that your authors know, hey, I'm not supposed to be using this asset, right? So now that we just triggered that sync, if I do a refresh here, we'll see that my asset is gone from AEM. So the sync actually removes it, or alternatively, if you don't want the asset to disappear from your author instance, we can do that too. We just tag it for expiration so that AEM sends a notification out saying, hey, this asset is expired, go take this action on it. So we can set it up either way. Typically, what users prefer to do is they prefer to expire it from their author instance, so then their authors can go take action on it and then publish those changes. So that was what I had to present. Do do we have any questions, Dimitri, before I hand it back to?
I do. That one that you can answer too is how long would all of this take to deploy?
So it's typically 2 weeks for the basic connector, 6 weeks for the full integration and automation solution. It's if you need any customization, it can vary a little bit based on the customization, but it really is setting it up in your environment, then working with you to make sure we're syncing all the correct metadata across the two systems, and then bringing your author team up to speed on the use.
Great, thanks.
All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing, and it's back to you, Kristen and Kevin.
Yep. All right.
Thank you, Rohit. I always love and appreciate that demo. I think what also some might not necessarily understand is that that little X button where you click to send a PDF to Viva for MLR submission is typically done as a screenshot, or it's being snagged by someone. So huge efficiencies there on both client, and agency side. Here we want to present basically turnkey, digital asset supply chain transformation. Expedient has been an excellent partner of ours at Link 9 as Omnicom Health Group's Center of Excellence of Production. And, I think sometimes people might struggle. How do I get this in action? How do I get this wheel in action? And thank you for the arrows, whoever put those there, because I think this really puts it in motion as far as a proof of concept. You've heard, in great detail, today, and I hope to follow up with the white paper as well about the XP Connect platform, and the connection, even beyond the basic connection. And then obviously the omni-channel framework. The buzzword is all about omni-channel delivery, but how can you get the omni-channel delivery, and how can you get your production teams on board? And I think that's where I find, great affinity in the, relationship that we have founded here, in that, the ability to spin up, a content authoring factory, and, be able to skin, templated framework and leverage your assets that, your agencies have provided from your messaging and et cetera. And, creating a centralized production house. I think, in the early upfront slide, whoever put that too had a puzzle piece about production optimization. And I think these two go hand in hand really to give life to the offering. Everything from governance and a ticketing system. I mean, one of our biggest strategies, going into 2022 is direct to client models. And, we've seen great success in that the last couple of years, where decoupling of production at certain levels, has really supported our clients and our shared clients, with Expedient very well. So, hopefully, any questions about XP Connect platform and XP Omnichannel, and even the basic connector to get off the ground, we welcome, at the end of this. So I think we'll go to the next slide to summarize for all of you. Kevin, I think, is joining me on this one here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I think, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah, I think, just with the XP Connect platform and the content authoring factory together as a whole, can improve the velocity. And, no one wants their agency assets not to, have greater life. And everything is about metrics and, an iterative approach. And, how can we measure the success of this is probably a question you're all asking. And I think the more you're able to connect things, the more you're able to answer those questions. So through integration, that's that, right, with the platform. But then, I look at all the manual tasks that we do, and the ones that this platform can solve. And I think that that's an important feature. Kevin,
yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, just looking at the top questions there, which is really just a recap from our first slide. You can maximize reuse or use of modular content by actually applying it. There's going to be things you have to think about as you're doing it. You have to think about what is it going to look like in an individual channel. The modular content itself doesn't matter so much from a channel perspective, but the modular content the constraints and the rules around how big a piece of copy we might have. Maybe you have small, medium, and large copy. I don't know. It depends on how you're going to go out and set up what are the best business rules for your organization. XP Omnichannel Framework provides some baseline for this, and we definitely can go out and extend that to provide more capabilities so that you can take your modular content and make it fully reusable across multiple channels. That's a key aspect of the whole thing. Automating the solution for MLR submissions. Again, I mean, we talked about this earlier. We saw it a little bit in the demo as well. Taking something like an IVA and putting it into Viva can be a time-consuming exercise to get the format right, to get the distribution, the zip of zips all set up the correct way so that it can pass on through. That's automated. That's just done. And you're using the structure inside of AAM. You just basically click the XP Connect button from the right spot, and you can send that over.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite button.
Yeah, I think so.
From our perspective. But knowing that you can use AEM modules, also Viva modules, you know, and where are you going with Viva, you know, in the coming, you know, year? Are you looking to migrate your claims there? Is that something that you will use to leverage modular content there? You know, there's some baby steps to get there, and those are things I think combined that we both can help you with. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's really about the low code experience with content authoring. And, you know, finding yourselves with sites or IBAs, you know, that can have, you know, obvious creative, you know, advantages, and, you know, not to be so basic, but, you know, UI can be worked with as well, you know, in creating your framework.
Yeah. Even above and beyond sort of what we've already talked about today from a modular content perspective, we do have an upcoming webinar on modular content. We'll talk more about how what we're doing actually from an Expedient perspective is we're going to take the Viva modular content modules out of Viva, and we're going to expose them inside of AEM. Rohit mentioned this as well. We're going to expose that into AEM and have them converted into experience fragments so that they can be used inside of XP Omnichannel Framework. That's going to be a really clean way to go out and take that content whenever it's updated or changed. We're going to see that percolate through inside of AEM so that we can go out and make sure that you're using the right content all the time.
It's that push pull that it's bi-directional.
Yeah.
That's valuable.
Yeah, and to Kristen's point, taking advantage of Viva's modular content approach really means that you should really be looking at taking advantage of Viva's auto claims linking. So if you have that claims library, that's just going to be a lot cleaner to feed into all those other areas. There's quite a spectrum of maturity in these areas. We can have COPE initiatives or omnichannel framework initiatives where you have the templatized environment for all your channels. You can have modular content, which basically talks about what the content you're going to put into those channels are going to be, and we can talk about claims management, claims libraries. Is the place for your claims inside of AEM? Well, you kind of need the claims inside of AEM, but do you need to actually manage them inside of AEM? And this is all the complexities that come in from the platform, and we can because the platform is not just a connector. The platform does bi-directional communication between the systems. We know where the right information is for each of those different areas. And once the system and the platform is set up and available, it's just a lot easier and cleaner for people to go and work with and use.
Yeah, Kevin, I think people might be wondering too, like, you know, where do I start? Do I start with a mature brand? Do I start with something in my pipeline? And I think, you know, if there's a mature brand and you have got an IVA and you have, you know, sound claims and messaging, you could start there, or, you know, start off on the right foot with POC of something in your pipeline, and, you know, start to tee things up, leveraging every activation of Viva, every activation of AEM, and drawing the two of those, you know, powerful platforms together.
Yeah,
I'm just being conscious of time, Dimitri. I think if there's room for questions, we could.
Yeah, I think we have a couple more. And Kevin, I think maybe you could take this one about the omnichannel framework. I know we provide templates and a framework, but what about adding client content? How does that work?
Well, yeah, so client content, I mean, that's really what you're going to populate into the framework. So whatever the client content happens to be is what you'll use. But it could be that you can also go out and take If you mean client content from the perspective of what does the actual IVA look like or the rep triggered email look like, you don't have to use the out of the box omni-channel framework. You can extend that to make it look and feel the way that you would like it to look and feel. One of the areas that I think is really important when you're dealing with any of these types of technologies, if you want to get and leverage it and reuse it over and over again, it's going to be really important to try to standardize what is an IVA, what is the experience you're going to have in there. You may have a couple of different navigation options, but you kind of want to set up what the basic structure is, and you're going to populate that with the individual bits of content. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks.
It's about transferring maybe something that it's inexistent to that framework. And we do that often, actually, from a production hub standpoint. You know, you take something that's been creatively fully baked and transfer that to something else, or take a digital IVA and make it a print visual aid. So, you know, there's ways around building content out in new channels.
Mm-hmm.
Great,
Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah, one more question is, and I think I can answer this, is does the platform support any other endpoint systems besides Adobe AEM, Viva PromoMats, and Viva CRM? Yeah, our roadmap includes several systems, and we can implement custom interfaces as necessary, and we're happy to discuss our roadmap in more detail, and I encourage people who have additional questions in that area to reach out and schedule a 15-minute chat with me, and we can discuss. But that's about it. I think that brings us to the end of all the questions that we have. Is there anything that you guys want to add before we close out?
I'd just like to thank everybody for their time today. And I hope that there's more communication. I'm actually looking forward to getting the rest of the webinars in this series out as well. Those will be exciting.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think what's most exciting about this opportunity and what we've seen thus far with clients is about, you know, getting to the table and having the discussions around, you know, what their needs are, like where are they invested, where are they today on this maturity curve. And, you know, I think in the video, my doppelganger said, you know, welcomes a discovery. So, you know, we hope to do that with all of you, and thanks for your time.
Awesome. All right, and just I just realized there's a typo. So that's my number. It's 862-222-7924, not 23. Text or call, that's my cell number, and you have my email there if you have any questions, and I'll be following up with everybody who participated. Thank you all for your time, really appreciate it, and look forward to all the speakers. Kristen, Rohit, Kevin, thank you for your time, and hope everybody has a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.